Hi, folks. I'm delighted to have with me today Rollin Russell, the Reverend Dr. Rollin Russell, who has written a book called Pulling Back the Curtain. Rollin, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what does it mean to be pulling back the curtain? I mean, you're a clergy after all. Last thing we should be doing is seeing how the sausage is made.
Well, I grew up in parsonages. I watched my dad at work, and for whatever reason, paid a good bit of attention to the. And I talk about growing up in a parsonage, being sneaking down the stairs to hear my dad's conversations with other clergy at times, and then after seminary, going to congregations in first Charlottesville, Virginia, then Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then two parishes in Texas. Then serving on the conference staff in Texas as an associate conference minister, then becoming conference minister of the Southern Conference of the UCC, which was 300 congregations in North Carolina and Southern Virginia. And finally ending up on the faculty at Lancaster Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania. And as I talk with people, as I shared those stories with my family and friends, people say, "You've got to write that down. That is too incredible." And I realized that a whole lot of the things that I dealt with and things that were the warp and woof of life of a pastor probably are unknown to church people. We have the vow of confidentiality that we make, at least in our ordination service. That's one of the questions. And so I kept confidential the things that were to be confidential, but I also never talked about some of the stuff that I did day to day and some of the stuff that I had to do in the community or felt like I wanted to do in the community, but never said, "Hey, okay, everybody, here's what I did this week." Um, so some of those things are important for church folks to know. Um, I remember being asked to do an after dinner speech at Kiwanis or Rotary or one of them. And I realized I was in Burlington, North Carolina. All of these people are officers in their churches. I knew a good many of them. And I said, "Hey, folks, you need to know what your pastor's having to deal with. And first thing you need to know is that your pastor's wife," and of course, this is back in the 80s, uh, you can tell a preacher's wife by the teeth marks in her tongue. You need to know what she's going through and what a pastor's family is dealing with when the pastor's dealing with your congregation. Well, they all, eyes got bigger and I got a lot of questions following, et cetera, some of which I could answer and others that I couldn't. But then in conference ministry, a lot of people have no idea what goes on at a church and ministry committee meeting where you're interviewing a candidate and some of the issues that come up there that are really important for the whole life of the whole church. And then in ecumenical and interfaith conversations, nobody ever really shares broadly the conversations that you have in putting together an interfaith dialogue, uh, which we did actually in 4 cities in North Carolina at one point, and ended up being ongoing efforts in those towns. Nobody knows the background of that. And then, most dramatically, at least in my thinking, some of the ecumenical conversations about how do we both honor our commitment to the unity of the whole Church of Jesus Christ in the whole world and our commitment to tell the truth to each other when we know we disagree on so many things. So I tried to tell some of those stories and be reflective about what that meant to me and what I thought how it might help people, both pastors who probably have gone through some of the same things that I went through in different contexts. Um, but that was the whole frame of reference for starting writing the memoir.
Yeah, that's what strikes me, Rollin. So as the editor of Santos Books, and by the way, readers, this book is out. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and wherever books are sold. Um, what struck me as editor was that this is not voyeurism. I mean, yes, it's called Looking Behind the Curtain, but its purpose is really to help and assist those who are in ministry, and that becomes the motivation, which then guided how you wrote. I'll never forget when my student assistant, who's a 20-something female, very much part of our culture, uh, said she loved the book. And I thought, well, this is by an old white guy, but it doesn't read like an old
It
white
might
guy.
have possibilities, huh?
So I was struck by how Olivia loved the book, and you love to tell stories, and they're relevant and readable as stories go.
Well, and what was interesting was some of the feedback I got when I sent out the electronic version before the published version was out. And the people I sent it to, of course, were people I hoped would endorse it.
Mhm.
And some of the responses I got were just heartwarming and unanticipated insights into what I was doing, but didn't realize I was doing. Like there's one blurb on the cover from John Dorhauer, who was president of the United Church of Christ, actually after I retired, but who indicated that he heard me speak in a very difficult situation one time, and it really changed his life because he had never thought that a conference minister could take on a thorny social issue, do it with grace and humility, and maybe turn the tide on something. So John was very complimentary in his endorsement. I appreciated that. Um, but yeah, it's been quite a pilgrimage writing the thing and hearing some of the responses.
So what has most, as you said, warmed you about the response of the people, or what has most been it's been most gratifying about the responses people have given to your writing, Ron?
Well, there's some real surprises. People, th- things that people picked up on that I wrote simply because it was a part of the story. Like one of my respondents, a pastor in this conference, said, uh, talked about uh, the tough decisions and the acknowledgement of the number of times that my wife's intuition pulled my chestnuts out of the fire. Um, I didn't realize how that would have come through to readers, but it's certainly true.
And I'm struck by how you noted that you observed closely as a child what your father was doing, and you also observed closely as an adult what you were doing and what the church was doing. And so these are stories with detail, stories with good memory, stories that are not just general, but very specific. You're a good storyteller, Rollin.
Well, thank you. I guess it comes from what, 40, 50 years of preaching, but yeah. And hey, I was raised on stories, namely the scriptures. Uh,
That's right.
yeah.
Well, Rollin, you've done all of us a big favor. I want to thank you for that. And the book is selling, and it's for sale, so I encourage our readers to pick it up. Any last words you'd like to offer?
Well, thank you very much, Conrad. It wouldn't have happened without you, and I'm glad it's out there.
Well, it's a delight. So you're continuing to write, I think, right?
I am. I am.
So we'll look forward to what's coming next.
Okay. I wish I could say something more about it, but I'm still working hard to try to figure it out myself.
All right. Thanks, Rollin.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
good book and your good effort. Blessings
Good.
to you. Bye bye.
Thank you.